welcome back to another episode of Filthy Hope. If it's your first time here, welcome. We're so glad you found us. On this show, we spend time in the grey spaces where Jesus, life, and culture intersect. I am your host, Jonty, and I'm joined by Rev Ness. Again, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, but you don't sound 100%, brother.
I can't catch a break. I think, yeah, depending what order all of these episodes we're banking before I go away come out, you might have heard me talk about, I had whooping cough, which
Yeah.
has gone from the middle of February until about 2 weeks ago. And as you can hear, I've caught another cold. I think I had 6 days of good health. And then my beautiful fiance, who by the time this comes out will be married, which is exciting, did a really lovely thing and gave me a cold. She had a
Oh,
cold.
sharing is caring, brother, as we
That's right.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
That's an early wedding present for me. Lucky me.
Oh, many more of those to come,
Yeah, for sure. So
you know.
apologies, my voice is a bit croaky today.
Well,
But
thanks for loading up and codrilling on,
yeah,
soldiering on.
the world doesn't stop, does it? You just got to keep trucking on.
We have deadlines to meet, and yeah, that's right. As long as we're standing, we kind of keep going, don't we? It's
Yeah,
beautiful that we can do it in this medium, though. So you didn't have to come into the studio today. So it's at least saving you travel and time on the road. So
that's
it's
right.
a blessing. That's one of the great things about COVID, is that we've
Yeah,
been able to pivot when things go down, right?
that's
Yep.
right. Yeah, and I'd much rather have a remote podcast than no podcast
Yeah,
this week. So
100%.
yeah. Any big news in the world of Nest this week? What's been happening?
Oh, I had a funny conversation at a meeting that I was at that I can share. And I've had conversations like this before. Do you want me to
Yeah,
share that?
sure. Yeah,
Yeah, I was just with a group of absolutely delightful people, and somebody, and they knew I was a minister, and somebody made a comment about the cross that I'm wearing around my neck. Can you see it, Jonty? You
yeah.
see it? It's a beautiful one. And I've got a collection of really lovely crosses. Whenever we go overseas, that Rob says, what do you feel like buying? I said, if I find a really good cross in Europe or a thrift store, I love buying them because they're interesting. Anyway, I inherited this one and I was given it with great love, but it's got an interesting story. I had been given it by somebody who had had a bit of a shady past. But at the time when this person was in my life, I didn't know that they did have a shady past. I only knew about the shady past long after I'd been a recipient of this beautiful gift. Anyway, I get given the gift, Happy Christmas, Ness. I said, oh, wow, that's such a gorgeous gift. Thank you. And then later I found out that that person that gave me the gift was in trouble with the law and did a bit of time in jail. And so I say, when people say to me, I love that cross, I'm always quick to say, I think I've been in receipt of potentially stolen goods. And if this belongs to your wife, your sister, your auntie, or your mother, can you let me know and I'll take it off my neck and I will give it to you? And I don't know if that's the truth, if it was in receipt of stolen goods, but I have a bit of a sense that that might have been the thing in the time, knowing now what I know. And it was funny. So I'm in this meeting today, and the gentleman says to me, oh, you're the only other person other than my Catholic mother who wears such a big cross. And I said, oh, and then I launched into the story. And he said to me, oh, I wish I said my mum had one just like it. And I said, buddy, I would have taken it off my neck and I would have given it to you. And we all pissed ourselves laughing. Quite hilarious. Yeah. So I had a funny time this morning. That was a bit of fun.
Yeah, nice. So it's always funny when you talk to people and they ask you what seems like a quite a cursory question, and all of a sudden they didn't realize that they've asked the question that you get a whole story attached with.
Always.
Yeah.
It's like that classic, what do you do?
That's
But
right. Yeah.
I was going into that meeting and they knew what I did and who I was, so it was okay. That everybody, it's so funny though. People when they meet me for the first time and they know that I'm a minister, they behave in a, I believe, in a manner that's not how they normally behave, and it's I find that a bit odd, you know. So then I try to make them feel relaxed by being as cool and as normal as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Throw in the occasional expletive if it's appropriate, just so that they can go, oh, okay, so she's normal. She's a normal person.
Yeah, it's always like whenever someone asks me like a hairdresser or someone I'm meeting for the first
What do you
time, like,
do?
what do you do? I always it's always like, what conversation do I want to have? Kind of
Yeah.
shapes what I say because like technically I'm a pastor, but if I say, oh, I'm a pastor, that then shapes the conversation we're about to have. And if it's a conversation I can't be bothered having, then I might say, oh, I'm a producer, or oh, I'm a writer, or I'm a
Yeah.
podcaster, or who knows, like.
Yeah, that's
Or
right.
just
That's
say,
so
I don't know,
interesting.
whatever. Yeah, depending on, you kind of get a read on sometimes what response you'll get depending on what you say.
100%.
That's like, yeah,
Absolutely.
which conversation can I be bothered having this morning?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Hey, how's your week been? Any news?
Well, while we're recording this, it is about 2 weeks until the wedding, so we're in crunch time for. Like earlier this morning, I was bottling up chili oil into little single serve pots for gifts, which great idea 2 months ago, and then when it comes time to actually doing it, it's like, oh, this is really this takes a long
Are
time.
you making the chili oil
Yeah.
from chilies that you've grown yourself?
No, just with like Szechuan chili flakes
Oh
and things
my
like that,
gosh.
star anise and cinnamon and all that stuff. So
Mate,
and we've done we last week I brewed or infused, I guess is the right word, 2 liters of chili tequila
oh,
as well. So our house smelled amazing that afternoon.
I
Smelled like
bet.
Mexican food.
With the oil, do you eat it or rub it on your body?
It's for I mean you can rub it on your body. It won't feel very
Ooh,
nice.
ooh, it'd be hot, hot, hot.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's full of chunky bits and like stuff in it. So you put it on top of noodles or
Oh yeah, wow.
in food basically. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. What a cute gift. I love it.
Yeah, so that's but that's what I've been in the middle of a big production line of glass bottles and chili oil and tequila and stuff this week.
Oh wow, wow.
But yeah, when this comes out, I'll be in. Actually, this comes out the day I get back from my honeymoon as well. So
Oh man, you'll be all loved up, brother.
I'll have just been in Thailand for a couple of weeks.
Hey, what have you been watching lately? Anything new?
Ah, that's a good question. I well, last night the first episode of the new season of The Last of Us aired.
Oh,
So I watched that. It was really really good.
yep.
But I've talked about that recently, haven't I? So I'll mention something
Yes.
else. This is I'm not expecting you to say yes to this, but have you heard of? There's a YouTube channel called Raka Raka. Does that
I
ring a bell?
definitely, no, I definitely haven't.
So it's these two Australian guys who are twin brothers who just made like sketch, I guess you'd call it like sketch videos, comedy, like prank stuff, but with lots of like wrestling stunts in there as well. So they're famous. They're famous for a bunch of videos in particular, with one of them dressed up as like Ronald McDonald, doing stunts in public places. They have 2 years ago put out a feature movie, which is completely the opposite of what their YouTube stuff is like, called Talk to Me,
Yep.
which is phenomenal. And the reason I bring that up is that they've got a second movie that's about to come out. A trailer just got released. So this week I went back and rewatched Talk to Me. Do you know anything
Oh,
about Talk to Me? Have you heard of this?
nothing. Not a thing.
So it's an Australian movie, Australian cast, Australian crew, shot in Adelaide. Came out 2 years ago. And the setup for Talk to Me is that there are a group of Australian teenagers, one of whom has discovered an embalmed human hand.
Oh dear.
that when you hold on to it and say, talk to me, and there are other parts of the ritual as well, you can momentarily get possessed by a spirit,
Good heavens.
and then you end the ritual, and it's an allegory for teenage drug use. So
Mm.
the one of the twin brothers who co-wrote and co-directed it had this experience at a party when he was in high school of a kid overdosing on I can't remember what party drug it was,
Mm.
and watching everyone not help but rather stand around and film and
Shit.
laugh. And so this movie, Talk to Me, instead of drugs, it's a
Yeah.
demonic possession tale.
Wow.
And so yeah, it's really really creepy horror movie, but it's using. But part of why I love horror movies in particular is they use genre to tell stories that are actually really real.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know nothing about what the new movie is. It's called Bring Her Back.
Mm.
They've released a trailer that almost gives nothing away, which I love because I'll get to go and watch it with no preconceptions other than I loved Talk to Me.
I wonder if it's her body that was her hand.
What do you mean?
Her
Whose
bring
body?
her back. I wonder if it's her
Ah, if
bring
it's related to Talk to Me,
to the yeah.
could be interesting. There's I don't know if it's still a thing, but there's a passing line in Talk to Me where one
Yeah.
of the characters is explaining like apparently the hand belonged to some Satan worshiper, and
Oh,
the other hand is still out there somewhere. And so
oh wow.
there's talk of a Talk to Me sequel, which if they have any wits
Second
about them,
hand.
they'll call Talk to Me,
Oh, yes.
about the second hand where that is. So yeah, if you're if
Wow.
I know horror movies, as we've talked
So not
about,
my thing.
not your thing, and it's not everyone's thing, but if it's something that if you enjoy horror movies and you for some reason didn't catch Talk to Me a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
I
wow.
think it's
Wow.
on Binge. I want to say it's on one of the streamers at the moment,
Mm, mm.
but it's also on Brolly for free, which is a Australian streaming service. So yeah, I rewatched that this week and really
Cool.
really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Well, I have just started watching Mobland. And the only reason I was attracted to it, it's on Paramount. And I think there's only 3 episodes into it already. It's got a absolutely gangbuster cast. It's the Guy Ritchie series
Yep.
with Helen Mirren and Pierce Brosnan. And I think, and that terrific female actress that was from not Bridgerton, but the other beautiful house in England set in after the Titanic had sunk, World War One. Oh, doesn't that drive you nuts?
I'm just looking at
Beautiful.
the cast listing now. Is it
Oh, she's
Joanne
yeah,
Froggatt?
yeah,
FRO
she's great. Yeah, she was in and it's a big house
Downton
and
Abbey.
Downton Abbey. Thanks. Anyway, they're a mob family, Irish mob family, Pierce Brosnan and Helen Mirren. But it's looking like Helen Mirren is absolutely the biggest badass bitch ever, and she kind of pulls the punches and draws the strings, and drives the crime and killing in this show. It's quite horrific. And you know how I say to you, I don't like horror.
Mm.
I find myself sitting there with Rob, and I have to have my phone with me because when it comes up to a killing scene, I have to just look at Facebook. I have to go to Facebook and not watch what's happening on the screen. And then I have to say to Rob, is it over yet? And he says, yeah. I said, what happened? And he'll brief me and then I can engage back in the show. I'm such a chicken with that stuff. I just don't want the image in my face. It's quite interesting, but
Mm.
it's excellent acting. It's really dark, but super interesting.
Mm.
It's okay. It's like,
Have, have you watched any other of Guy Ritchie's stuff? Like his last thing, I don't know if he made a movie in between them, but there was the Gentleman TV show. Because if
no,
you're
I haven't
enjoying
seen that.
Mobland, you'll definitely enjoy
Oh, thank
the
you.
Gentleman. Yeah, with
Yeah.
Theo James. Is that guy's name? The British guy. Yeah, and it's a spin-off from The Gentleman, which is a movie of his as
Oh,
well.
oh, thanks, Jonty. That could be a good Easter watch if I'm not reading Sin and Atonement and my other great, exciting subjects of theology that I'm deeply into, sin and suffering, and why does God allow bad things to happen to innocent people?
All light stuff. Yeah,
Just super easy reading, mate.
super
It's
light.
just
Yeah.
like, mate, this is just so simple to grasp and understand because, like, after all, I am God, you know? Like, who are these people that think they know the answer to this
Mm,
business?
mm,
I just find it audacious, quite frankly. I say, I
yeah.
don't know. It's okay to not have the answer always, people. It's okay to wrap this in God's mystery. All will be revealed in time.
Mm.
Don't worry too much about it.
This probably serves actually as a really good
Yeah,
segue because
does.
we're going to be talking a little bit about doubt today, and
Mm,
I yeah, I often I struggle with that same thing that you're identifying there, Ness, where people seem to be. It's almost like they're scared of not being confident in what they think, which is where you get like this, and there are certain denominations that almost teach this
yep.
is like how to be really, really confident in what you believe, which in and of itself, I don't think is a bad thing. I think that's a quite a good thing to be giving someone the confidence to go out and tell other people what they believe,
Mm.
especially when it comes to sharing the gospel. But when it can tip over is when that confidence gets in the way of any sense of like, I may not actually have the whole story and being open to learning more.
Or being unhappy with not knowing the answer and being unhappy with being able to confidently say, I just really don't know. And
Mm.
therefore that can lead to their doubt in the
Yes.
faith that they're really committed to because they in fact don't have an answer.
Mm.
And they're so busy trying to reduce God down to a single answer that I think that limits God when we do that. Why can't you just sit in the grey? Just
Yeah,
sit.
because yeah, when you allow yourself to do that, that undermines what some Christians hold to as like the concrete
Mm,
nature of faith.
mm,
Like you see, it becomes really obvious when, like an example of this is when you talk about scripture with people. A common like thing that you hear from people can be like, oh well, if we're not going to take this literally, then where do you draw the line?
yeah.
So you have to take everything literally because if some of it isn't literal, then how do you know what is or isn't? So scripture must be literal. As an example, and as soon as you introduce that element of it's not black or white, there is some stuff that you can explore and mess around with that's a little bit more grey,
Mm,
then it
mm,
opens up the entire faith to being able to be pulled apart. And that can be intensely scary and intensely like personally debilitating for people, which is why it's a really nice, safe feeling to be able to go, no, 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 I have this faith thing completely down pat and I have theology worked out and I have God in a box and I can
mm,
tell you
mm,
exactly what it is.
mm,
Because there is no
mm,
doubt in that. There is no scary, I don't know.
mm.
And I part of me understands why that is attractive to some people.
Yeah.
But like you say,
Because,
it reduces God into a box.
yeah, yeah, that's right. I don't think we're meant to have it all known. At the moment, I'm doing this study and we're just about to launch into the impassibility of God, which is like a concept in one of the major theological traditions that says that God is incapable of experiencing pain, pleasure, or any other emotional state. And that particular doctrine of impassibility suggests that God is not influenced by any actions of humanity and remains emotionally unchanged by the world's events. So it's huge. I don't like that idea of impassibility of God. I like to think that God does feel our pain. God is there in the midst of our suffering. And I feel that if and I'm only a short way into this study on this topic. I've studied it before, but now I'm doing a bigger dive into it, and it's huge, Jonty. It divides Christian communities in their belief, because people want to believe that, God does feel, is there in the feeling. And I think, and many theologians do believe that God is capable of experience and pain. And I think if we just go, we've just had Easter, right? If we think of the divine suffering of Christ on the cross, he's our perfect example of suffering. And the person of Jesus was on the cross. The person of Jesus was also divine. This is my take on it in my early studying, right? He's fully human, but he's fully divine. And we know that when we study the Trinity, we understand fully human, yet fully divine. So why would you break off the idea of him not being able to suffer and plonk that into the divine category and just have him suffering as Christ? Because we damn well know that he suffered. We talk about that passion narrative till we're blue in our face. We love the detail about Jesus suffering. But I think in my limited studies, I think that I like knowing that God suffered alongside Jesus in that moment and suffers alongside us and relates to our pain completely,
I think as well, I also like the idea that God is capable of experiencing pleasure and enjoyment. And I think of things like, is it Jesus' baptism by John the Baptist where we hear God say that this is my son with whom I am well pleased?
Yes.
Or is that up the mountain with the?
No, he's well, is he well pleased at the baptism?
I think it's at the baptism, isn't it? Isn't
Yeah,
it?
and the
Yeah.
dove comes down. The
Yeah.
Holy Spirit descends.
And I think about the Genesis, the creation narrative, which
Yeah.
we're definitely going to get into at some point as well, because it's so ripe for discussion. But we get the repetition of, and God saw that it was good at the end of each phase of that creation narrative, and it ends with God saying, "And it was very good." What is that if not an expression of enjoyment and
Yeah.
as well as God identifying with suffering through Christ? I think it's also I equally am as passionate about this idea that God identifies with enjoyment and pleasure as well.
Look, and Jonty, we've just done that only a few weeks ago, the whole Holy Week piece. And remember we see him acting, Jesus, we see Jesus acting in a manner that I would describe as rage or anger.
Yeah.
When he goes to the temple and he flips the table and he cracks the whip, that's one pissed off divine dude. You can't tell me he's not feeling. And he sees the injustice of what's taking place on that day, and he responds. I believe his full divinity is responding in and through the embodiment of the Jesus man at the same time. Boy, that's a hard thing to describe, isn't it? It's really tough, but I feel that gives, for me, in my Christian walk, bigger gravitas to the man of who Jesus is. That whole divine, human, infused being, the nature of him is just so much more powerful if he is a feeling divine being that relates to our human suffering and pain.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. And
And you've talked about it before. Remember when we had that conversation with Graham Long?
yes,
Do you want to share that again for
yeah,
anybody that
yeah.
hasn't heard this? Because I think this is it.
Yes, people can go. It was in the first run of episodes we ever did. So if you go all the way back to the beginning of the podcast feed, you can probably find it there somewhere. But he was telling a story while he was at Wayside as was he a pastor or a social worker at the time? I can't
I
remember.
think he was maybe a social
Maybe
worker.
a social worker. He was helping a woman flee from her husband who was abusive, and in the process had managed to get her and one of her children out of the home, but not the other child,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
later discovered that the husband had murdered the child in a pretty horrendous way, that involved putting the child in a bag and filling it with rocks and chucking the child in a river, I think it was, and him being asked the question by this woman who had just been forced to flee her husband, who she was still like having that really, as often is the case, really conflicting feelings of love, but also hatred and wanting to flee this man. But then had also lost a child, and she was asking him, where on earth could God possibly be in that story? And his answer, which again is reflected in the Easter narrative, like you say, of Jesus becoming human and experiencing suffering through death. That God is in the bag. If God is anywhere in that story, God is in the bag at the bottom of the river with the young child. It's a
Yeah,
really powerful
exactly.
story.
100%.
I was going to say, I think also there's this if we're going to bring doubt into this conversation as well, we can see Jesus on the cross experiencing doubt in the same way that humans do. Even Jesus, who, like you say, was God and human at the same time, like fully divine and fully human,
Yeah.
is shouting out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" What is that if not an expression of doubt? Even the Son of God, even God made human, experienced doubt, experienced separation, or felt separated from God. So when we talk about doubt, sometimes as Christians, it can be this really scary thing of like, oh, you're experiencing doubt. You must be doing something wrong. Like, let's go for coffee so we can figure out why you're
Yeah.
doubting and fix it,
You're
as
not
opposed to
praying
going,
hard enough.
that's right, as opposed
Yeah.
to going, lean into that. Why
Yeah.
are you doubting, and
Yeah.
what is it? What is there in that doubt for you to learn? Have you experienced doubt along the way, and what has that looked like for you, Ness?
You know, it's such an interesting conversation because you and I have talked about doubt a lot over our time of knowing each other, and I know that you have had doubts, and I, I, I have not had a lot of doubt about God and how I know God and how God and I relate to one another and my devotion to God. I don't have that doubt until just really recently this year when I was in hospital and I was dealing with a heart thing, and my husband had no doubt that I was going to be okay. God had spoken to him, and God had said to him, pray over my heart and I would be healed, and to fear nothing. Words to that effect. And God had also spoken to me at the same time and said to me to pray over my heart. And we prayed at the same time. It was, 3:30 in the morning. And I've talked about that before on the podcast, so I don't want to bore you to tears with that story. And then I had all this 100% commitment to the fact that God was 100% there, and I had zero doubt. But then I came back and had to have another procedure only a couple of weeks later. And then that's where I started to doubt. And I had this huge moment of what the fuck, God? Where are you? And I was literally left for 3 days in the hospital, not knowing. And I was calling out to God and I'm saying, mate, what's going on here? What, talk to me, man. Come on. And I heard nothing. I like zip. It was like flatline. And Rob kept saying to me, God had said, do not fear, Ness. Everything's going to be okay. But do you know what? I did fear. I could have sat there for 3 days, you know, watching telly, having a nice, relaxing time, chatting to my friends, reading stuff. I didn't. I sat there for 3 days in a shitstorm of doubt and panic and deep worry. And I'm not proud of that, Jonty, because I would have loved to have been able to say to you, oh, mate, I nailed this Christian piece, look at the cross around my neck. Aren't I a legend? I just absolutely kicked it out of the ballpark. I had zero doubt, but it's just simply not the truth. I doubted. And I actually put the knowledge of the medical professionals above having heard only weeks earlier what God had said to me. I trusted what was in front of me, not what I knew to be true. So I lived by sight. I lived by what was right in front of me and not from what God had previously told me. So I felt like a bit of a shit Christian, really, and I felt embarrassed to say that I doubted which isn't cool because that must mean that I don't think too fondly of people that do doubt. But now that I've had this major doubting experience, I have a whole new sense of empathy and understanding for what it means to doubt. And I think that's probably going to make me a better leader.
Mm. Do you know, like, could you put to words what it was that you actually were doubting? Like, were you doubting the truth of what God had told you, or was it like a doubt that God even existed, or like because you can doubt all sorts of different things.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, what were you doubting in that moment?
I was doubting the fact that God had told me I was healed. Had I not heard that correctly?
Right.
Was it a something unusual had gone on and I was just not hearing correctly? And what would that mean? I don't think I'd do too well with that. And I think that's what I struggled with the most. Had I got that wrong? Had I got that completely wrong? And it was kind of a bender for me and blindsided me completely. But as I understand about God, he knits all our things together for his good and for our own transformation and our growth and our development. And I have grown just in the last month or so from that massively. It's taken me to a new place of understanding, which is always good when you're in leadership. It's another list of life experiences that I didn't previously had, and I'm glad it was only 3 days, mate. What about you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Because I've been a Christian my whole life, more or less, with some speed bumps along the way, as every Christian has. I think the first major experience of doubt came when I was probably about 11.
Yeah, wow.
Because in the same way that I was taught about gravity and don't stick your hand in a fire, your hand will burn, and wear a helmet because if you crash your bike, you'll hit your head and get a concussion, and God exists, and also go to school and learn this, and also, by the way, God exists. Like the idea of God just was a thing from day one. So it was never introduced to me as like a new thing that I had to kind of like evaluate. Yep. It was given to me before I had the cognitive function to to question almost. Like it was just,
Wow.
I inherited
Okay.
it as this is just true. And so I remember when I was in, I would have been 10, at the end of year four, going into year five, I moved school to attend what I believe is still called Opportunity Class, OC.
Oh yeah, the smart kids,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
brainy kids,
Nerd
year
school.
five,
Nerd
nerd
school.
school.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was in a class of 30. There were two classes in my year that were at this particular school that were all fresh at this school in year five, had come from other
Yeah.
schools around
Yeah.
my area. So it was I still have so much gratitude that for those 2 years in particular of my schooling, because
Wow.
not that I felt like I was getting held back at my previous school.
Mm.
Like I had a great primary school, both of them, but I was given so much extra like
Opportunity.
oxygen to my
Yeah.
particularly with
Wow.
reading and writing.
Wow.
But an offshoot of that was that I religion didn't really come up until then at school. Like every so often, like someone, oh, what are you doing on Sunday? Oh, I'm going to church. And it was
Mm.
no one's really old enough that they go, oh, what church is dumb. Like,
No.
you don't. I didn't necessarily run into that up until that point. But when I
Yeah.
was 10, 11, 12, like that kind of age, was the first kind of time that I was aware that me being a Christian and me going to church every Sunday morning with my family wasn't something that everyone did. And
Wow.
so
Okay.
just naturally, I was kind of like, huh, all my best friends went like are church people, but now I have these best friends that aren't church people, and they talk about how they think church is weird and they don't actually think God exists. And that was the first time in my life that I couldn't tell you like a specific day or anything, but just around that
Mm.
time
Mm.
going,
Wow.
huh, maybe I should ask questions because I never have had the need to ask questions.
Mm.
And one friend in particular in primary school when I was at OC, being the probably the first of, I think everyone Christian every Christian knows that one person, friend or not in their life, that like is the strictly logical atheist.
Yep. Yep. It can be a catalyst too, can't they?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And to his credit, I we fell out of touch. I haven't seen him since high school.
Mm.
But to his credit, it was never like you're dumb. It was more just like, oh, that's interesting. What about this? And I'd be like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And at age 11, at a sleepover or something, we'd just be talking about why do you believe in God? I'm like, I don't really know. Why do you not believe in God? And then he'd say, well, because
Wow.
this, and this. And so that was my first experience of doubt. And I think,
Deep thinking at like 10, Jonty, isn't it?
oh, and I'm sure if I had transcripts of those conversations now, it'd be like
Yeah.
the most basic 10-year-old shit you've ever heard in your life. But
Yeah, but
at that
the other,
stage in your life, that is like, those are the questions you're asking, right?
and that other 10-year-old to be asking those questions.
Yeah, and
See, that's what I
also
find fascinating.
also incredibly intelligent because we're both
Yeah.
at and he far more intelligent than I ever was or am or ever will be. He's gone off to go to Harvard and a bunch of other things. But yeah, like and I
The
remember
original School of Theology, Harvard, just FYI.
yeah, that's right, that's
Wonder if he
right.
finds Jesus there.
I'd have to ask him.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, and that I remember that being a very strange experience, kind of going. It's almost like someone said to me, "Oh, you know how your parents always told you that when it rains, you should wear a raincoat because
Mm.
otherwise you'll get wet and then you'll get sick."
Yeah.
That's actually not true.
Yeah, that's right.
And then suddenly giving you all this like information that's
Yeah.
telling you the opposite. Because
Yeah.
for me, Jesus and God and scripture and church were that level of just baked in knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that was my first experience of it, but I experienced doubt all the time, like
What
all the
about
time.
what about things like worldly things like you you're getting married? Have
Mm.
you had that doubt? I know, and the reason I ask is because I remember having doubt. that as the wedding comes close, and there's lots of movies about this where people, they pull out at the last minute and then they get back together. Plenty of
Yeah.
movies about
Yeah.
that. So it must be a thing. Have you ever doubted anything in and around the whole getting married routine?
Of course. I
Yeah.
think never I've never doubted at any point anything to do with my partner and I.
Mm,
I have nothing but loved her from as long as we've been together. The doubt where that comes in is I have a massive fear of like big decisions.
yeah.
So like even something like when I bought my first car,
Oh,
I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. Oh my gosh, what if I crash it and write it off and don't get the insurance back? And then, oh my gosh, is this the right car for me to have for 5 years? Or like, and just the
mm,
idea of making a decision that really, when I'm sitting in, I bought my first car from Pickles, which is the ex-government
yeah.
fleet service. I'm sitting in their office, and literally in the space of 30 seconds, I've signed the thing and and made the payment. And it's like, oh, that took no time at all, and I'm going to have this car for who knows how long.
Yeah.
I've just, for some reason, the idea of making a decision that seems really, really split second that has massive long term effect has
Mm,
I've always that's always freaked me out. Like it took me a long time to. I probably should have moved out of home 18 months to 2 years before I did
mm,
for just that, not that I should have, but it would have been equally as right for me personally to move out of home way earlier than I did because it was that big decision. So I think when you ask about the marriage, it's not that I'm doubting should I be with this person. It's more like,
mm.
oh, is marriage the way to go? And ultimately, I've multiple times over come back to the answer that yes, it is.
Mm,
But yeah, always, and you always have, and it's doubts aren't always these earth-shattering
mm,
capital D doubts. You can have like lowercase d doubts as well.
mm,
I doubt myself all the time. Like we've
mm.
talked about imposter syndrome before. Like
Oh, yeah, it's
we
awful
all
feeling.
doubt ourselves. We all have
Yeah,
doubts that we are as capable as we like to think we are, or that we tell
yeah,
people that we are.
yep.
Yeah.
I had doubt when, thanks for sharing that. I had doubt when I married Rob. I was 22 when we got married, at 21 when I was engaged, and he was not in my plan. No
Mm,
boy was in my plan. My plan was I was going to be on a country practice. I was going to be an actress. I was going to own an apartment in Neutral Bay, and I was just going to tread the boards of theatre and sing and dance my way into my old age, or at least till my 40s, and be a gym instructor at the same time. And and then this man comes along in my life, and my fear was that if I didn't marry him, I would regret this for the rest of my
mm,
life. So this overwhelming knowing that I couldn't live without him was no shadow of a doubt in my mind that I needed to marry him, because he was in America, and it's the only way we could do it in the 80s. That's the only way you could do it. But I knew that I wanted to be with him for the rest of my life, but I had that doubting sense of, oh my God, I'm so young, and should I be doing this now, and all of those kind of things. So I just did it anyway,
mm.
and so did Rob. I mean, Rob had just come out of a marriage. So the doubts must have been huge. His family were thinking, what are you doing? What are you doing? And you're moving
Mm.
away from America to go and to live in Australia. I mean, their doubts must have been off the charts.
Mm.
They hadn't even met me at that stage. Must have been horrific for them as a family, you know.
Mm.
Um,
Mm. I think
Doubting,
I think they're good for you though, right?
I think so.
Because they make you consider options and possibilities.
Yeah, that's
And if
right.
you're blindly going ahead with your first hunch or your first like our emotions can be misleading sometimes in the same way that
Yeah.
our doubts can be misleading.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think doubts give us the opportunity to consider things.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And there's this famous guy in the Bible called Doubting Thomas. And I know
Yeah.
we've talked about him before. And he's like, his name and his story is synonymous with when we doubt, right?
Yeah.
And he doubts that Jesus is actually resurrected. And I think that's absolutely gold. I used to think he was a bit of a loser, Jonty, because I was, such a zealot and on fire for Jesus. But now that I have experienced this doubting thing myself, I think I kind of resonate more with him than I ever have before. He just wanted, and he actually says, I think, words like, "I just want to see that the hands that were pierced with the nails. I just want to see the side where he was,
Yeah.
stabbed in the side. He just wanted to see it because he couldn't believe until he saw,
Yeah.
you know."
Yeah.
And Jesus makes some comment about, yeah, okay, it's great that you can see, but the people that don't have to see, their faith is even greater.
He says that, but I always look at that story and go, Thomas cops it unfairly because he's the only one in that room that hasn't seen the resurrected Jesus. So
Yeah,
when Jesus says that, he's like, "Blessed
yeah,
are you that great
yeah.
that you believe, but blessed are those who believe
You
without
haven't
seeing."
seen.
As if
Yeah,
anyone else in the room had believed without seeing. They all saw Jesus in the
yeah,
flesh,
yeah.
except for Thomas. And we actually read earlier in one of the Gospels when Jesus is planning to head into Jerusalem for that
Mm,
final week, which
mm,
we read about that triumphant entry, which I have issues with calling it a triumphant entry as well, which we can
mm.
talk about another time. They're like, dude, if you go back into Jerusalem, they're going to kill you.
Yeah.
And Thomas is the one that says, great, then let us go and get killed with him. So Thomas
Mm,
actually is this guy of great faith that was one of the like most active disciples in
mm.
that gospel story. And so I don't know, it's this interesting thing that like, yeah, of course Thomas has to see the risen Christ because the others did too. And the
But I
others, when
wonder,
the women first tell the men, they're like, "Nah, bullshit," and then they come and see him,
yeah,
and they go, "Oh, Jesus is resurrected." And I can just imagine the women going like, yeah, we told you, man."
told
Like,
you.
yeah. So I don't know. I think Thomas cops it unfairly, but
But do you
yeah,
think Thomas was expecting Jesus to be that savior on the white horse? Dude, yeah, we'll come in with you, man, because you're going to manifest into some great hero that did. Dun, 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 la,
Mm,
la, la. I wonder if Thomas thought that. And when he didn't see that and he saw him die and therefore had to flee, if he's gone, had to rethink everything, a bit like I just explained about I was on fire with the Spirit, hearing the voice of God, and yet I doubted.
mm,
It's so embarrassing. I feel embarrassed by that. I wonder if Thomas was embarrassed.
mm.
I wonder.
Maybe it's an interesting, like you bring up the image that they probably had of Jesus as like a conqueror, which
Oh
was
yeah,
a you have I often forget, and we have to kind of place into proper context this idea that the Jewish people had a long history of being enslaved and promised freedom, and so it wasn't just like, oh, we're oppressed by the Romans, hopefully this guy will come and free us. It was like, no, 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 this goes back through all of Old Testament scripture, all the way through the law, the story of God's people.
yeah.
And the Messiah promised to come and liberate God's people. And so I think, of course, Thomas probably, whether or not he, I don't think, off the top of my head, I don't think it actually, we get much more of an insight into what's going on with Thomas, with him specifically. But I think
Mm,
to some degree, he definitely had that image. I think they all did. We
yeah,
we were talking at church recently about, the kind of irony at the heart of the Jesus entering Jerusalem. They were all like waving palm fronds around and laying
yeah.
their clothes down, and it's almost like I can imagine everyone kind of going, wait, what is this, the guy? Because this dude turns up on a donkey. And remember,
Mm,
donkeys are tiny, so his feet are probably dragging along. He's this dude,
100%.
like
Like
completely.
comical. It's comical, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's this complete subversion of what they were expecting, which then goes all
Yeah.
the way through to what a Messiah shouldn't be killed by the people that he's freeing us from. And yet that's what happened. And so
Yep.
I don't hold it against any of them, but especially Thomas for kind of going, oh, well,
Doubting.
like that didn't pan out. I guess he wasn't the real deal. But all of them, as soon as they do see the evidence in front of them, as soon as they are confronted by the resurrected Christ, that's one of the most compelling things. Going back to my own personal doubts, one of the most compelling things that I cling to whenever I have experiences of, oh, is the gospel true? It's never a doubt of like, did Jesus exist? Because there's overwhelming historical evidence. It's more, was Jesus the Son of God? Did Jesus come back to life? Was Jesus resurrected? If I'm doubting that, one of the things that I often go back to is the way that people like Thomas experience the risen Christ and then just flip their life around on a dime, and
Yep.
almost all of them get killed for it.
Yeah, I
Are
know.
just out there proclaiming that Christ is risen.
Yep.
You don't do that unless you
Sold out.
you definitely don't do that for a lie. You definitely
No,
don't do that for something that you know isn't true.
no.
So for all the shit that Thomas
He
cops,
cops. Yeah.
he did after he put his hand in the wounds in Jesus' hand and on his side,
Yeah.
like the rest of the disciples that encountered the risen Christ, was a key part in the early Christian movement, the people of the way. So I don't
What
know.
a
It's
good story.
And also, without Thomas voicing those doubts, Jesus may not have turned up and spoken to him.
And aren't we glad as believers that there is a story and there is an example of doubting so that we can rest in that knowing that we're probably not losers. We're a-okay. We're actually normal.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay to have doubts. It's okay to critically think. It's okay to smash this out and work this business out. But I go back to where we first started at the beginning of this podcast. I don't think we need to always have the answer.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to not always have the answer because I think so much rests in the mystery of God, and almost to manufacture answers so that we feel comfortable in the black and the white, I think is boxing God into a place that is doing God disservice, and that's not cool. Yeah.
I'm reminded of earlier this year, we talked a fair bit about the film Conclave
Yeah.
and the sermon that Ray Fiennes' character Lawrence gives
Yeah.
at the beginning, where he talks about the sin of certainty.
Yes.
He says, just off the top of my head, like more and more, he's worried about the sin of certainty because, and this is in the context of they're about to vote in a new pope in this fictional tale, that he's praying for a pope that doubts, so that they have a pope that is open to learning and leaves room for awe and mystery and uncertainty in their faith,
Amen.
which I think is a wonderful way
Yeah.
to look at it. Because without doubt, our faith isn't faith. I feel really strongly about that, and doubt is the thing that makes faith faith.
And you know what? Until now, I haven't really understood that when you've said that, and you've said it for the last couple of years. And it's only because I have experienced it myself. And so for that, I apologize, Jonty. I might have sounded like a bit of a dick in the past, and I apologize if I haven't fully understood. But I'm resonating with you more and more now because I have a deeper understanding of that.
That's cool because, like, to use your story as an example, an act of faith would be in your doubting the truth of the words that God had spoken to you, choosing to live by those words regardless, when the evidence in front of you
Yeah.
seems to be counter to that. And that's why we've gone, well, this first run of merch that we've made, I've used the phrase faith is punk as hell. Because to live by faith is an act of punk because it's not, it's going against what is expected. It's going against
Mm,
it's countercultural, especially if yeah, living as if love and hope is the driving force at the center of existence
mm,
is not living on evidence. Because a lot of the
mm,
time, the evidence points to the opposite. A lot of times, the
mm.
evidence of the world that we live in, of the things that happen to people and the world around us, point to that the world is chaos. The world is like bad things happen to good people.
Yep.
So it is an act of faith. It is a punk mentality to go. Despite that, I choose to
To
live as
believe and
if
live.
love
Mm,
is the central force that drives the universe,
yeah.
and we have a name for that love, which is God.
Oh, gosh, you should be a pastor. I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, so that's why when people talk about doubt, I don't get scared. I go, great.
Yeah.
What are you doubting?
Yeah, it's
Like, because
great.
and being open to having that conversation without necessarily like, there's an allegory that I can't remember where I heard it, but it's this idea that if your faith is a house that you build on a concrete, what's it called, a foundation,
Slab.
a concrete
Slab.
slab.
Yep.
Yeah, if you think about that house that's getting built in your suburb where you walk past, and it's currently just a concrete slab and a couple of pieces of wooden like timber framing is starting to go up. If the concrete slab is the truth, the capital T truth that God is love, and that as we've just talked about again this year with Easter having just gone past, that God, the essence of love is God giving over oneself to humanity to die for humanity's sake. That's the
Mm.
concrete slab.
Yeah.
Everything else we build on top of that,
Yep.
if the house gets rickety and I don't know, it gets mold or gets termites in it,
Mm,
is no longer helpful and actually starting to get harmful,
mm.
then it's actually to everyone's benefit that you pull the house down
Go back to the
and
slab.
go back to the slab. And
Yeah.
so
I love
I
that.
think people like it's almost like a swear word when you say the word doubt because they think you're
Mm,
doubting the concrete slab.
mm.
Doubt is a really healthy way of interrogating the house that you're building on the slab. And
And
if
can
that,
actually draw you to a closer, more abiding love and commitment
a
to
better
when you
house.
a much better house.
Yeah.
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 Better structure because you that's right. And it doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers still. You've got to
No,
know how to put the roof on, but you don't have to have all the answers.
you can renovate in 10 years.
Yeah.
You can chuck an extra bedroom on the end, or you can
And you
knock it
know,
down and start again. Like the slab's still going to be
that's
there.
right. I'm in my 50s and I've renovated my Christian scaffold many times.
Yeah.
And I think it's very healthy because when I first went through uni in my undergrad, I believed a whole lot of things that was very almost childlike, I think, in my initial learning and understanding about and theology. And it's just through life experience and a deeper dive that I've pulled bits of that scaffold down. I'm changing those sliding doors, like you said. And if we're using the house analogy, I'm
Yeah.
going to recarpet, repaint. No, actually, I'm going to change the roof. I think I'm going to change the roof. Put on a veranda, mate. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, exactly. And I think that's all really healthy and good to
Yeah.
keep flexing and learning and growing, and in doing that you form tighter bond with God, and the more we dig and explore and are willing to learn, we will be transformed by his spirit, and he will reveal himself to us in ways that we wouldn't have known had we not done a exploratory dive.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
my thought anyway.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it kind of almost doesn't matter what the house looks like as long as it's on the slab, as long as it's comfortable and safe for you and other people to be inside.
Yeah,
If it's built on that
exactly.
slab,
Yeah, love it.
yeah. That's probably a
Wow,
good place for us to wrap up, I think.
great combo. Super. I
Um,
loved that one. That was fun.
yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah.
If people have follow-up questions, thoughts, stories, things they want to talk to us about this topic of doubt, get in touch with us. As always, you can join our Facebook group where we talk to our listeners directly. The link for that is down below. I'm thinking of Facebook tends to be like, there's not much going on Facebook these days.
Yeah,
The only
interesting, isn't
reason I
it?
ever go on Facebook is usually to jump in that group. So I'm exploring other options, whether it's like a Discord or something. If that's something people are interested in, let us know. Join that. The conversation around that will be in the Facebook group. So
I think that's
join the
good because
Facebook group.
I wonder if Facebook's just a little bit old-fashioned. It's more my age demographic that are still engaging with Facebook. Maybe we need to be looking at a different
Yeah,
modality. I
yeah.
agree.
So if you want to stay up to date with if we are moving that group, where that's going, join the Facebook. We'll probably leave the Facebook group up as well. But yeah, most of our engagement is on Instagram these days. So follow us on Instagram as well. If you'd like to support us, pray for us. That's always appreciated.
Please.
Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and if you give us a little write up, we'll give you a shout out on the podcast as well. Or you can buy a piece of merch. Merch and live shows, regos are all in the same place on the Uniting Heart and Soul website. Link for that down below as always.
Or if you want to come to church on a Sunday
Yep.
and just do more of a come into this beautiful old building and have a bit of a Sunday church experience, we've got a really great band and we do some. I just talk like this. I just don't say shit or bum, rude things from the pulpit,
Yeah.
but I just do it like this, really.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you there.
Yeah, we'd love to see you there. Anything else on this week, Ness, for you? Anything exciting between now and next week happening?
Nah, just more of the same sermon prep, liturgy, do my thing.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
Nice. I'm about to go away in podcast land. This has already happened, but I'm about to go away over the Easter long weekend
Oh,
out
wow.
out to 4 hours west, out 45 minutes west of Orange. So I'm sure I'll have some fun stories after that I can
Well,
share on the
yeah,
podcast.
one of the blessings of not being a congregational minister, Jonty.
Yeah,
You'll get to experience that as a pastor.
that's right. Yeah.
Yep, lucky bugger. Have the best time
Yeah, I'm sure I will. And then
and get
yeah,
well.
get well. That's my plan. My plan
Yeah,
is to be well enough to get married. Not that I won't get
that'd be
married, but
handy,
like,
brother.
it would be handy so I'm not
Definitely. Yeah,
sniffling
very
while I
handy.
say my vows.
Yes, don't want to be snotting all over her.
That's right. That's right.
Uncool, uncool.
Yeah. Next week, I can't remember off the top of my head what's happening next week, but we'll be back for more Filthy Hope. We'll be diving back into the Word soon as well. So in the meantime,
Yes.
keep an eye out for that. Our third podcast has launched by the time this comes out, through a screen darkly. So if you're interested in talking with myself and some guests in the future, about films through not strictly through a Christian lens, but definitely the Christian lens will be applied. Come and join us over there as well. Those episodes are coming out on Mondays. So we've got Through a Screen Darkly on Monday, the main show here on Tuesdays every week, and Into the Word dropping on Wednesdays. So don't
Holy
say we don't
gosh.
do anything for you guys, because
Oh, woo. You wait till the kids one comes out. I reckon that's where all the traction's going to happen, John T.
yes, and like we said in our 150th,
Yeah.
we're still developing that. If you are at all interested in partnering with us in any way, whether it's financial or you have a skill that you think you could lend to us in making that production happen, because we're deep in development at the moment. If you haven't listened to that 150th episode, it's going to be a seasonal kids TV show in the realm of like a Bluey or a Play School or that sort of thing, dedicated to like the kids, the Sunday school style of delivery. So
But cool.
yeah. So if
Amazing.
that's something you want to contribute to, get in touch with us as well. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks, Ness. Thanks for talking.
Hey, thanks, John T. And get well, brother.
Yeah, I'm back on the Codral, I've got the saline solution dripping out my nose
Oh,
constantly.
oh, gross. Running down the back of your throat. Oh,
Yeah.
yucko. Yeah. Get well,
Hopefully I'm
mate.
well for next week.
I
But
hope
if not,
so.
you'll just have to endure my croaky voice again.
Yeah, it's okay. It's quite sexy, brother.
Not Claire. She hates it. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt beyond repair and cannot bear to see your face in anything. Find peace in letting go of the guilt that is in yours, and find hope in understanding. Life is not a game you have to win. Forgiveness overwhelming, salvation not deserved.